Think about the last time you bought something you were just really excited about.
Oh, like a brand new car or something?
Yeah, a car or even just, a new phone or a piece of furniture. You bring it home, you're admiring it, and like almost immediately you spot a tiny glaring flaw.
Right, a scratch on the leg of the table.
Exactly. Or a microscopic dead pixel on the screen.
Mm.
And does it completely ruin the whole thing for you? I mean, did it make you want to pack it up and send it right back?
I mean, it's a completely universal reaction. That tiny flaw just becomes a magnet for our attention, completely overshadowing the utility or the beauty of the whole object.
Right. And what if I told you that this modern obsession we have with fixing every little flaw,
Hmm.
this desperate need for everything to be absolutely pristine, is the exact reason you probably feel completely exhausted right now?
Because we don't just do this with our phones or our table.
No, we do it with our entire lives. We
Yeah.
fall into this trap, this little voice in our head that constantly whispers, uh, I'll finally be happy when.
Ah, yes, when I get that promotion.
Right, or when I hit that magic number in my savings account. Like when I fix this one glaring issue in my relationship, well, then I can finally relax.
It's the classic postponement of joy. The underlying assumption there is that your current life is just like a messy, rough draft.
Yes.
You're just biding your time, kind of gritting your teeth until the final, polished, bug-free version is ready for publication.
Exactly. It's like we're treating our lives as a waiting room for the real event. Well, today's deep dive is aimed right at the heart of that illusion. We're looking at a deeply personal, beautifully written essay from Psychology Today by entrepreneur and author Fizzle Hoke.
Yeah, the piece is titled Only Dead Things Stay the Same.
And our mission today is to really explore this cultural desperation for a completely settled life. And, discover how flipping that script entirely might actually be the ultimate shortcut to genuine peace.
Because Hoke's piece is really challenging the fundamental definition of what it means to be alive. He's asking us to look at why we automatically equate unsettled with broken.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to me, this pursuit of a perfectly settled life feels exactly like running on a treadmill where the finish line is a mirage.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, like you're sweating, you're putting in all this effort, you keep bumping up the speed, but the finish line just constantly recedes.
Yeah, you get the promotion, but then the new job means you have to manage a really difficult team.
Exactly. You buy the dream house, but then the roof leaks and the property taxes go up. I mean, why are we so culturally conditioned to believe that life is something that hasn't officially started yet?
Well, neurologically speaking, humans inherently crave stability. Our brains are essentially giant prediction engines.
Okay.
I mean, the brain only makes up about 2% of our body weight, but it burns roughly 20% of our energy, so it's always looking to conserve calories.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah. So predictability and stability feel safe because when things are settled, the brain doesn't have to expend massive amounts of energy scanning the horizon for novel threats.
So it's basically being efficient.
Exactly. We crave the settled state because it's biologically efficient.
So it's not a character flaw that I want my life to just be easy and predictable. My brain is literally just trying to save calories.
Right. The problem isn't the craving itself. The fundamental flaw, as Hoke points out, is taking that localized biological craving for safety and applying it to the overarching trajectory of a human life.
Oh, I see.
Because life, by its very definition, never graduates to a permanent settled state. Biology is chaotic.
Yeah.
Hoke summarizes this beautifully with the core thesis of his essay. He writes, only dead things remain as they were. Things that are alive and vital are in a constant process of becoming.
Only dead things remain as they were. Man, so if you're standing still, you aren't actually living. The ground is supposed to be shifting beneath you.
We suffer immensely because we want the ground to stop shifting, but the suffering doesn't come from the shifting itself.
It does.
No, the suffering comes from our stubborn cultural belief that the ground shouldn't be moving. We feel like we're failing at life because there's turbulence, when the turbulence is the very proof that we are alive.
To see what stepping off that treadmill of waiting actually looks like in practice, let's jump back to December of 2006.
Okay.
Faisal Hoke has this profound, very physical experience that completely shatters his illusion of perfection. He travels to Japan for the first time with his late friend and mentor, a man named Ito-san.
And Ito-san takes him way off the beaten path, right?
Way off. They start in the massive, bustling city of Yokohama and wind their way all the way into the rural Japanese Alps.
They end up at an ancient traditional Inryokan called Yarimikan. It's deep in the Shinhotaka hot spring area of the Gifu prefecture.
Yeah, and you have to picture the setting here. It's remote.
Very
It's
remote.
nestled right between these towering peaks, Mount Yargatatak, Mount Hotaka, and Mount Kasagataka. It's a place deeply tethered to the natural, untamed world.
And it's here, surrounded by these ancient mountains and steam rising from the hot springs, that Ito-san introduces him to a true kaiseki.
Right, and a koseki is a highly traditional, multi-course Japanese dinner.
But it's more than just a meal. It's intrinsically tied to the specific season, the weather of the day, and the immediate environment where it's being served.
Now, Hoki had eaten what he thought was kaiseki back in the United States, so he was expecting this incredibly polished, dazzling culinary performance.
But the real thing completely baffled him.
Baffled him. It defied every single expectation he had for high-end dining. Like the ceramics the food was served on were visibly imperfect.
Yeah, a glaze might be pooled unevenly on one side.
Exactly. The rim of a bowl wasn't perfectly rounded, at a slight warp to it, and the ingredients themselves were barely manipulated by the cooks.
They were presented as close to their natural state as possible.
Right. The whole meal unfolded slowly, quietly. Yet, Hoke writes that despite feeling completely unfinished by his usual standards, it was one of the most beautiful experiences of his life.
It was a massive aesthetic and emotional collision for him. He was forced to confront a completely different value system right there on the plate.
Wait, hold on. Because if I'm paying hundreds of dollars for a high-end, multi-course meal, I expect absolute, Instagram-ready perfection.
Of course.
We're talking Michelin star standards.
Right.
I want chefs using literal tweezers
Okay.
to place microgreens. I want symmetrical plates, molecular gastronomy, sauces reduced for 3 days. How does a lopsided bowl and an unmanipulated piece of fish translate to a profound life experience?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're touching on the exact contrast that makes this so powerful. In the West, we equate culinary beauty, and really beauty in general, with absolute control.
Right. We want to dominate it.
Exactly. We want to demonstrate that we can conquer nature, sanitize it, and present it flawlessly. When you demand that Michelin star perfection with the tweezers and the symmetry, you're reinforcing the illusion that the world can be completely managed. But the kaiseki meal wasn't the result of careless cooks or a lack of skill. I mean, it takes decades to master that preparation. The imperfections were entirely intentional.
Wow.
They were physical manifestations of a worldview that celebrates what is rather than a longing for what we think should be.
So the cracked, warped bowl is beautiful exactly because it looks like a real object that exists in a chaotic, unpredictable world.
Yeah.
It hasn't been sanded down to hide its history.
Yes, it forces you to sit with the reality of the present moment, unpolished and real. The meal strips away the illusion of control. It says, nature is messy, you are part of nature, and there is profound grace in that reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting. That lopsided bowl wasn't just a quirky design choice. It was the physical manifestation of an ancient worldview known as wabi-sabi.
Right, and wabi-sabi rests on 3 core principles that modern society usually spends billions of dollars trying to outrun.
Only billions.
Maybe trillions. Those principles are
Ah.
nothing is perfect, nothing is permanent, and nothing is complete.
Nothing is perfect, nothing is permanent, nothing is complete. I mean, for most of us, those 3 truths are the exact sources of our anxiety at 3 a.m.
And that's the vital pivot of wabi-sabi. Rather than seeing those truths as reasons to complain or reasons to feel insecure and anxious, this philosophy sees them as the very foundation of deep joy.
How so?
It actively celebrates the beauty in impermanence and imperfection. The philosophy argues that things are beautiful because they are fleeting and flawed, not in spite of it.
Okay.
Think about the seasonal ingredients in that kaiseki meal. They were beautiful specifically because they would be gone in a matter of days. Their impermanence is what gave them value.
I can hear the cynics out there right now, though. Accepting that nothing is complete and nothing is perfect just mean we're giving up.
Not at all.
Like, how is wabi-sabi different from just lowering our standards, throwing our hands in the air, and accepting mediocrity in our work or our relationships?
That is the most common hurdle people hit when they encounter this concept. Embracing wabi-sabi absolutely does not mean you stop caring about quality or that you embrace laziness.
So you don't just stop trying.
Right. It doesn't mean you build a house that falls down. What it means is realizing that flaws are not obstacles to beauty, they are the source of character. It's about shifting your criteria for what makes something valuable.
It removes the sterile, mechanical expectation of perfection and replaces it with an appreciation for authenticity.
Exactly.
So it's the difference between a mass-produced, factory-perfect plastic table and a hand-carved wooden table that has knots in the wood and a slight unevenness in the grain.
Yes.
The wood is technically imperfect compared to the plastic, but the history in those knots is exactly why we value it more.
And that appreciation for character isn't just an aesthetic preference for furniture or fancy dinners. What's fascinating here is that we're actually seeing the profound benefits of this mindset play out in modern psychology labs.
Yeah, the essay highlights the work of psychologist Kristen Neff, who was a pioneer in the study of self-compassion.
Her work is groundbreaking.
Her research has consistently shown that people who respond to their own imperfections with warmth, rather than harsh, critical judgment, report significantly lower levels of anxiety, less depression, and a much greater overall sense of well-being.
To understand why that happens, you really have to look at the underlying neurology. When you make a mistake, say you send an email with a glaring typo to your boss.
Oh, the worst feeling.
Right, and you immediately default to harsh self-judgment. You actually trigger your body's threat defense system. Your amygdala perceives a threat, and it spikes your cortisol levels. It puts you in a physiological state of fight or flight.
But the threat isn't a lion in the bushes. The threat is me. I am attacking myself.
Exactly. You are both the attacker and the attacked, which means you can't escape the threat. Your body stays flooded with stress hormones.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Self-compassion, on the other hand, operates on a completely different biological pathway.
Mm.
When you approach your flaws with warmth and acceptance, it triggers the mammalian care system.
Mm.
It releases oxytocin and engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which actively downregulates that threat response. It slows your heart rate, it clears your head.
So beating yourself up over your flaws doesn't actually make you better at your job. It just keeps you locked in a state of panic where you can't problem solve effectively anyway.
Wabi-sabi is essentially self-compassion made into a worldview. It looks at you and tells you, you are imperfect, your life is unsettled, things are incomplete, and absolutely none of those things are emergencies. You are fine exactly as you are, right in the middle of the mess.
But look at Faisal Hoka. He's not a monk meditating on a mountain. He is a highly successful tech entrepreneur.
Oh, very successful.
He's spent decades building companies, winning major tech awards. In the cutthroat business world, a flaw in a product or a hole in a strategy isn't just a charming quirk, it's a massive liability that can tank a company.
That's a fair point.
So how does a CEO embrace imperfection without investors walking away and the business completely failing?
Hoke had to confront that exact paradox. For a long time early in his career, he treated imperfection as the ultimate enemy. He viewed every flaw in a product, every misstep in a boardroom strategy, as something to be aggressively eliminated before he could move forward.
He was treating every stage of his business as a rough draft for the next supposedly perfect iteration.
Exactly.
The treadmill again. Like if I just fix these 3 bugs, the company will be settled and I can sleep.
But what Ito-san and the Kaiseki meal taught him, and what eventually transformed his entire approach to business leadership, was that true innovation rarely happens in a sterile, perfect environment. As an entrepreneur, as a writer, and even as a father, his greatest successes came from learning how to move forward within conditions that were imperfect and incomplete.
Moving forward within the imperfection, not waiting for it to clear up like bad weather.
He realized that if you wait for the perfect market conditions to launch a company, the flawless product before you ship, or the ideal financial time to start a family, you will literally wait forever.
Right.
The art of business and life is acting courageously while things are still deeply unsettled. Wabi-sabi didn't make him lower his business standards, it changed his operational timeline. He stopped requiring everything to be flawlessly right before he could act.
That is a massive paradigm shift. And since the psychology clearly works to lower our cortisol and the business applications are proven out by a successful CEO, let's talk about how you, listening right now, can actually use this.
Yeah, let's make it practical.
How do you actively apply wabi-sabi when you're stressed out of your mind about an unfinished project at work or an awkward, unresolved situation in your personal life? Hawk actually gives us a roadmap with 3 daily practices.
The first practice is to intentionally notice beauty in something unfinished. He suggests pausing just once a day to appreciate an imperfect thing that moves you.
What kind of things?
It could be a conversation with a friend that didn't resolve neatly but was deeply honest. It could be a creative project that is still taking shape and looks a bit messy. Or even just noticing a season that is actively turning, like leaves starting to drop from a tree.
You're training your brain to view it like that cracked bowl in the kaiseki meal full of character, not a problem demanding to be solved.
You're actively dismantling the neurological reflex that labels unfinished as bad.
The second practice is to let something be good enough. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Hoke says to choose one task this week and intentionally release it before it is perfect.
Oof, that's tough for a lot of people.
Send the draft to the email, ship the creative idea, submit the proposal. I actually struggle with this constantly. I'll hold on to a piece of writing, tweaking the same 3 sentences for hours, convincing myself that if I just find the exact right adjective, the piece will be undeniably perfect.
Oh, I know that feeling.
But all I'm really doing is hiding. I'm protecting myself from criticism by never actually putting it out there.
Hiding behind perfectionism is incredibly common. When you intentionally let something be good enough, you discover experientially that the world doesn't end. An unpolished contribution can still be highly valuable to your team or your audience, and the relief that comes from that realization is immense.
Practice number 3. Name what you're waiting for. This is a quick journaling exercise. Write down the condition you've set for your piece. Literally fill in the blank. I'll feel settled when.
When I get the promotion.
Right. I'll feel settled when the mortgage is paid. I'll feel settled when I lose 10 pounds. Once you see it written down on paper, ask yourself if you are postponing a life that is already happening right now, all around you, while you wait for that blank to be filled.
It really puts things in perspective.
So what does this all mean? To me, applying all this feels like treating your life as a constant beta test software release.
I love that analogy.
When a tech company launches a new app in beta, they know it isn't perfect.
Yeah.
They don't wait for all the bugs to be fixed to launch it because they need real people to use it to see how it actually functions in the real world.
Right.
The bugs aren't a failure of the launch. The bugs are just part of the user experience. You find them, you catch them, you keep going. Life is a beta test. You just have to launch.
The beta test is the reality. It's the only reality we have. And this raises an important question for everyone listening to consider today. How much of your own joy have you deferred?
Yeah.
How many experiences, relationships, or creative pursuits have you sidelined because you are waiting for the final software update of your life? An update that, by the very laws of nature, is never going to arise.
It's a sobering realization, but it's also incredibly exciting because it means the waiting period is artificial. You can just start right now.
Exactly.
Which brings us full circle to the end of Hoke's essay. The mentor, Ito-san, who started this whole journey back in 2006, has since passed away. But as Hoke poignantly notes, the mountains in the Japanese Alps still stand. The river beside that old inn still flows, never the same from one second to the next.
Hoke found a beautiful way to honor that legacy, too. He writes that he returns to that first kaiseki meal in his memory often, but eventually he honored his late mentor by preparing a massive 7-course kaiseki meal in his own kitchen in the U.S.
And the most beautiful part of the whole story is that Ito-san never actually had to explain wabi-sabi to him using words. He didn't sit Hoke down with a whiteboard and give him a philosophical lecture on Japanese aesthetics.
No, the creaking wooden inn, the cold mountain air, the river that was constantly shifting, the uneven pooled glazes on the dinner plates. The environment itself was the lesson.
The environment itself was the lesson.
The core takeaway from Hoke's experience, and from all the psychology we've unpacked today, is that there is profound beauty in a life that is unsettled. As long as you are alive, you are incomplete, and that is a feature, not a bug. Hoke ends his piece by quoting the character Andy Dufresne from the movie The Shawshank Redemption, "Get busy living or get busy waiting."
Get busy living or get busy waiting. If you're waiting for the treadmill to finally stop so you can step off and enjoy the scenery, you're going to be running until you drop. The scenery is right there beside you while you're sweating, while you're out of breath, while the finish line keeps moving.
It really is.
We want to leave you with one final lingering question to explore on your own. If perfection is really just an illusion that's keeping you stuck in the waiting room of your own life, what is one beautifully imperfect thing you are finally going to let yourself do today?